Thanks so much, Tanisha and Marco. That was an incredible demo. It's always fun to see our products in action, and I'm sure between the great spotlight earlier, the demo, our audience has some great questions lined up. So thank you for joining everyone today. My name is Iman.
And I'm Shri. I'm so thrilled to be here answering your questions live from our fabulous studio here in Sunnyvale.
Awesome. We're also joined by the team that just took you through that live demo just a few minutes ago. So you may see them pop up to help answer questions throughout the show. Okay, let's jump right in with a little poll. Tell us what got you most excited today. Is it our trusted cloud? Is it our zero trust philosophy? Is it our $10 billion cybersecurity investment? Or is it the cybersecurity action team? And by the way, I'm waiting for these poll results. So while we wait for these results, just a reminder, this Q&A is live, so you can engage with us directly. So Steve, Brian, Dinesh, I'm watching all of you right here live on the chat. So if you can't, just go back to the Next Event website and click on the blue Join the Interactive Experience button. And as we give you some time to submit your poll, I want to hear the scoop from you, Shri. So tell us what you're most excited about.
I am really excited about the zero trust model. I feel like we're kind of adopting it, and we're seeing a lot of people move toward it. So.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing this for so long, right? You know, we're taking an approach that we've pioneered, and we're putting it out in the world, and we're watching a lot of customers sort of adopting this this approach now.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
Oh,
it
looks like it is.
It looks like it is. Yeah. That's right. Looks like a lot of people are really excited about zero trust. That's amazing. Okay, cool. What's the next runner-up? We've got our $10 billion cybersecurity investment, but zero trust is definitely leading by a pretty big margin. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's kick off our first question. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
All right, cool. So I guess while we're waiting for questions from the audience to populate, the question I have for you is, why is security dominating the headlines?
You have to be under a rock to not notice all the stuff that's happening around us, all the IPOs with SentinelOne and ForgeRock and Darktrace, and we're seeing presidents and prime ministers commit a giant amount of dollars, including our new president, to security. And so I think there are two things here. Typically, an industry will see a lot of movement because there is a technology shift that happens. And we're seeing that too with the digital transformation. The way that we secure our environments has changed. And so there's a lot of movement that's happening in this industry because of that. Added to that, security has this other thing where it's also driven by the people who are attacking the attacks that are happening. And we're seeing a huge amount of attacks happening today. And as a result, like, for example, this is really sad. We've had our first death that happened because of a ransomware this year. We've had a pipeline company have to pay a ton of money for a ransomware. We've had manufacturing companies get disrupted in their manufacturing. A distillery company basically had a disruption pretty recently. And so we're seeing a lot of this happen all around us. And that's kind of adding more focus into this area where people are starting to realize that this is an important area that needs a lot of investment, because otherwise businesses are going to suffer because of it, and nations are going to suffer because of it. And that's, I think, part of the reason that we're seeing this doubling of that exponential growth.
You mentioned a couple great things. Like, I've noticed the cloud evolution has allowed a lot of businesses to sort of transform the way that they work, the way that they offer services and products to their consumers. And we as human beings are now more dependent on technology, now more than ever. And so I always like to say that, cybersecurity is going to start to be seen as a service-oriented role, an honorable role in society, because we have customers who build healthcare systems on our cloud, industrial systems on our cloud, offer all sorts of services, right? And as we become more and more dependent on technology, we need to ensure that we're also advancing the state of how secure our infrastructure is, so that we can protect our customers and protect people at the end of the day. So looks like we got a question from Jeanette, which is, what makes Google's cloud more secure and trusted than its competitors?
So Google actually started building a lot of these security products for itself, right? So Google is known as a very secure company, and so what we've done recently is taken some of the work that we have done to secure our own corporations or our own customers, like Beyond Corp that we just saw the demo for, or reCAPTCHA, and productized it. And the vision here is that every customer can be just as secure as Google is. But add to that this idea of innovation that's there at Google. So for example, when we decided to go into the federal space and do a FedRAMP certification, instead of just standing up a couple of data centers near North Virginia and saying, like, let's do that, let's, this is a set of customers, let's give them a cloud that is compliant to their needs, we decided to make all of Google Cloud FedRAMP High. And so now a customer in Brazil can leverage those features just as much as a federal customer might. So I think there's this leaning in to the forefront of security that we're now seeing with the Trusted Partner Cloud, for example. We had a couple of announcements last week. We had an announcement with Thales. And we're sort of saying that a lot of nations want to be able to own their own infrastructure and their own destiny. And so we're taking the Google Cloud and kind of making it available to them in a way that they own it and they operate it. And so that's another thing that we're doing that's kind of pushing the boundaries. And I think this is just this idea of pushing the boundary that is what makes Google really special.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that's really important there, which is like, because we own all of our infrastructure and we've served billions of users all around the world through Gmail, through search, and through all this, it's kind of a no-brainer that we also allow enterprises and small businesses to also now revamp the way that they do their operations on our cloud and on our infrastructure. And so we are able to do global changes like that with the FedRAMP certification, right? Where we do manage all of our infrastructure end-to-end, which is a big element of this. It allows us to govern our cloud more securely, more efficiently, and also to pioneer really significant changes for our cloud and all of our customers worldwide.
100%.
Yeah. All right, we got the next question, which is from Izumi. The question is, which operating systems does BCE support? Does BCE support third-party clouds or on-premise application? And I believe this question would be probably best suited for Marco.
Yeah, I can answer that question. So the beauty of Beyond Corp, and I would just say, based on obviously the breadth and width of our Chrome browser, is that we can support any operating system at this point. So whether it's Chrome OS, obviously, which we love and hold near and dear to our hearts, or Windows, or Mac OS, or Linux, or Android, or iOS, we support all of them. So your users aren't going to be limited to a particular operating system, which is great, especially when you are an organization trying to enable, right, enable your employees and your contractors. On top of that, we support everything from thick client applications, right, to server-based applications, web-based applications. It could be, HTTP, and, TCP-based protocols. There's no limit at this point in time, so kind of the imagination is the limit.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who probably doesn't get as much exposure to Beyond Corp and getting hands-on as I used to, I really loved your demo, and so that was super helpful, and I'm, can't wait to go back and rewatch it. We've got another question from Tara, which is, in the spotlight, Sunil spoke a lot about invisible security. So 2 questions. This is 2-pronged. If security is invisible, does that mean that I can't change the settings or decide what security I want? And 2, does invisible security mean that security is free?
It's a great question. I think I'd like to step back and see what the problem is, right? So the problem we're trying to solve is that there is a alert fatigue that we're trying to deal with, right? There's most corporations can't even look at, forget about processing, about 50% of the alerts that they get. So you're starting to see all these alerts coming in, you don't look at it. And there's a lot of work being done to bubble up the more important alerts and put them in front of the SOC and so forth. But that still means that there are 50% of the alerts that you don't even look at, right? So, so the idea is, are there things that we can do to prevent certain type of action, for example, that might not be kosher action, and without creating friction in the business. So based on the business's own rules, are there org policies that you can write? Are there deny policies that you can write? What can we build into the platform in a way that you're bringing down the number of alerts and the number of things that you need to watch? And how do you actually guide things to happen? And so this idea of moving from just always responding to things to maybe preventing things, maybe guiding people in the right direction. A great example is there was a customer who once told me that just by sometimes popping up a question, like, is this something that you want to do? You'll find that a large number of people will just not do it, right? And so you can, there are a lot of different ways that you can prevent certain things from happening. And that, I think, is the core to what invisible security is about. So it is based on things that someone might configure, and it's based on the business logic that company wants to have, and it's not something that's just invisible in the sense that you lose visibility into your security. It's invisible in that, there are things that you don't need to do, and they're not coming at you all the time.
You can automate, as much as possible. It's like no security person ever said that their job is completely stress-free and it's easy, right? And so, I always like to say, like, we as humans, we do security in our everyday lives, right?
Yeah.
We threat model when we leave the house, we put our seatbelts on, we lock the doors. We've been taught over all these years of evolution how to be secure, right? Some of us more than others, right? And then when we get into our digital lives on the cloud, we have to relearn all these things, and some of them we have to build into our infrastructure so that they become part of our background processes, and some of it comes through user enablement, and some of it comes through the amazing products that we serve. Security is the core of how we advance all of the amazing things that we're doing as humans into this new world where everything is technology driven and whatnot. We got a question from Noor, and this one's for Tanisha probably. I would say, Tanisha, what applications does BCE support?
Thanks, Iman. BC supports all applications from IIS to SaaS to thick client applications as well. And like Marco mentioned, we support HTTP and HTTPS, in addition to TCP protocols like SSH and RDP. Awesome.
And I see a lot of great chatter from the audience. Ravi, Joey, Tisha, Tommy, awesome. Thank you for engaging. All right, cool. So we got another question from Jean Michael. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. It says, can you only use the Chrome browser for BCE? And then how do you make sure the Chrome browser is in use is the approved one? The Chrome browser that's in use is the approved one, not another Chrome instance that could be a man in the middle.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So this is kind of the beauty of context-aware policies, right? We can enforce these policies down to the browser level. Versions, for example, what kind of browsers are able to access. If it's a corporate managed browser device, you can wrap policies around all of that. So you can get very, very granular. And I would say the other side of this is we want users to be able to use what browser they want, right, for personal access. And I think that's great. We should continue to support that if that's what they want and if that's what the corporation wants. But as far as accessing corporate resources, it's just like anything else, right? You want to be able to manage it, and we're not going to necessarily just trust anything. So having a trusted Chrome browser for accessing corporate applications works great for our customers, and it's just the best method to kind of move forward. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Marco. Yeah. All right, we got a question from Robert. And this is, how is Google's zero trust model different than other competing hyperscalers?
So I think the zero trust model is like, so Google said the zero trust model, and I think there's the world that's adopting the zero trust model. The zero trust model, there's only one model. There isn't a Google zero trust model and someone else's zero trust model. Mm-hmm. And the zero trust model is very similar to, maybe I think an analogy is the things that happened today as we got into the studio. We've all been vaccinated and tested multiple times in the last week. And still when we came in, we got tested again. And then we were masked and had a shield. And we were doing that up until we were in front of the camera. And as soon as this is all done, we're going to be masked and, sent out, right? So this idea that you have access to something just at the time that you have access, and there's context to whether you need access or not, and where you're coming from and what you're doing, and that should all be added into the decision making of what you are. I think that's what is zero trust. And it's great that it was pioneered by Google, but today that is a model that's being used everywhere. I think where the question may be coming from is about the Beyond Corp enterprise and how is that differentiated. And I think the key thing here is we've seen the track record of Google in terms of keeping our employees and our data safe through Beyond Corp Enterprise, and we're trying to get that out to our customers. And the one thing that I would like to point out is the zero trust model isn't just one tool. It's a mindset. It's a way in which we do things. And I'm really excited about GCAT, the announcement that we just made about the Cybersecurity Action Team, where we're going to be having like these security experts and CISOs, people like Phil Venable, available to our customers to think through this model and think through end-to-end how they're going to actually be implementing it. And so that's the exciting thing, I think, overall. We have the pioneering product. We have the knowledge of zero trust end-to-end. We've actually implemented it and we've proven it.
I love the analogy you put together about COVID and whatnot, because it's like we went from traditional network-centric boundaries to identity-centric boundaries, and now it's like, who are you and what's your purpose and what are all the other factors into why you should be performing this action? And I think one of the most amazing things about when I first joined Google was not having to use a VPN. Things just work, and I thought that was really nice. So we're going to go to a question from Amitabh from Ford. So the question is, how do we implement zero trust in our org?
It's a great question, and I'm going to actually throw that question to you. You're in the solutions team, so let's talk about this, right? You know, how do we implement zero trust in the org? And I guess it starts with Beyond Corp, but what are all the factors that you think about?
I always like to say that a lot of big workload transformations in security are not just a matter of buying a product and paying for a service. It takes a lot of enablement and education from the top down and from the bottom up. We have to structurally think about how we're going to transform the way that we work and what implications those have on the way that we work today and what our pros and cons are and what our approach is going to be and what our strategy is going to be to sort of get there. And that strategy is going to be augmented by people, by teams, by development teams, by tools, by partners. So when we advise customers and we sit down with clients and we talk about solutions, right, and helping transform elements of their business, we don't just talk about how a product can be leveraged in your organization, because we've got product teams that can talk about the product. We talk about how we can actually transform the business, and how we can get the whole organization to culturally transform the way that they work, and how we can get on a tangible path to achieving a zero trust architecture in their workforce, and that may be a multi-year strategy, right? And so there's many, many, many different layers to this.
I agree. I think there's this whole thing about you can think of a question only in, you can think of a product and a particular problem that you're trying to solve, but if you're not thinking about it end to end, like security is just as strong as the weakest link, right? And so if you have a contractor who has direct access, then you have a problem there. So are you thinking about the thing end to end?
Awesome, awesome. And by the way, big shout out to the GCAT for bringing on that security advisory role. So we got one last question here, and Sri, I'm going to give you this last question, which is, what do you mean by shared fate, and how is that different from shared responsibility?
It's a great question. So shared responsibility has really, unfortunately, come to mean divvying up responsibilities. I'm responsible for something and you're responsible for something else. And so that is not the partnership approach that Google wants. What we want is to be able to say, well, we're sharing the responsibility and we're sharing the fate from that responsibility. So we're doing two things. One is we're making sure that we're bringing in all the data, like to you in terms of configurations that you might have in terms of like secure landing zone or secure blueprints. And then we're also have risk manager to quantify and then be able to address your risk. So all of that is what shared fate is, where we're actually being part of the process with the customer.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining us today. And big thanks to Sri, Tanisha, and Marco for sharing their insights. That's all we have for you on the live show today. Be sure to check out our great on-demand content. Our live programming kicks off tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific with our Community Spotlight. Thanks for joining us.